إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. طيب يا إخوة, last week we covered 4 names of Allah Azza wa Jal. What's the first name? Al-Awwal. What does it mean?
First.
The first. What does it mean first? What's the hadith says? قبله شيء. He's the first, there's nothing before Allah Azza wa Jal. طيب, what's the next name we've learned? Wal-Akhir. What does Akhir mean?
There is no ending.
No, and no, there's no. Okay, what does hadith says? Okay. Okay, وليس بعده شيء, there's nothing after Allah Azza wa Jal. So how do we understand when Allah created Jannah wa Nar, and the Ahlul Jannah will have no ending?
Allah is the most powerful. He made it like that. He can destroy if he wills. Right. That's how Allah made it.
Yeah. So He created Jannah. He gave Jannah life for eternity, and obviously Allah can perish that, and He can perish the human being as well. So they're akhir because Allah gave them this time period. Whereas Allah is akhir, no one gave him that to Allah Azza wa Jal. He's ever living. He never had to earn this. Wal akhiru. What's the next name of Allah we've learned, Brother Mustafa? No. This ayah. Wal awwalu wal akhiru. Go on.
Al-Batin.
No, before that. The ayah. Al-Zahiru. والأول والآخر والظاهر. What does ظاهر mean?
ليس فوقه شيء.
What does it mean?
There's no one above him.
Okay. No one above Allah Azza wa Jal. والظاهر. Nothing above Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay. What's the other one? The last name we covered? Akhi? What's the last name? Okay. Do you know which one last name? هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن. What does batin mean?
He's close to us.
وليس دونه شيء. Nothing closer to us than Allah Azza wa Jal. What does close here mean?
Close to us in knowledge.
Knowledge, hearing and seeing, that's it. طيب, we covered all these names. طيب, let's start inshallah. وقوله تعالى يعلم ما يلج في الأرض وما يخرج منها وما ينزل من السماء وما يعرج فيها. Here Allah Azza wa Jal has knowledge what comes into the earth, what goes out, what comes down from the heaven, and what goes up. So here we're going to learn the name of Allah Al-Alim. Al-Alim. The word yaliju means to come down. So here يعلم في المضارع يعلم من Allah. Who يعلم. Allah knows what comes in the heaven. طيب, we covered this before, that when it comes to sifat of Allah Al-Alim, Ahl Sunnah affirms that Allah's name is Al-Alim, also Al-Allam, the knower. Okay, Al-Alim, Al-Alim, these are names of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we said that Ahl Sunnah believes Allah has the attributes Al-Ilm. The fact Allah is Al-Alim, knower of everything, He has the attributes, the knowledge. And some of the, unfortunately, Ahlul Bid'ah like Ash'ara, Mu'tazila says that Allah Azza wa Jal has name but no attributes. And it doesn't make sense. Allah being Al-Alim, knower of everything, but He doesn't have attributes Al-Ilm, it doesn't make sense. The fact Allah is knower because He has knowledge. So it goes against the sense, and it doesn't make sense. So this is belief of the Mu'tazila and Ash'ara. They believe all the names of Allah, denied all the sifat except the 7 sifat we've mentioned before. طيب, so these are the people who opposed Ahl Sunnah. So they don't affirm, the Mu'tazila don't affirm sifat of Allah Azza wa Jal. طيب, they say Allah has no ilm, but He's Al-Alim. They affirm the names, but deny the sifat. But it doesn't make sense, because every name of Allah has attributes, and the reason Allah has attribute, because, like for example, Ar-Rahman, His name is Ar-Rahman, and His attribute Ar-Rahma, because Allah possesses Rahma. The many hadith and many ayah of the Quran indicates that. طيب, so يعلم ما يلج في الأرض. Allah has knowledge what comes into the heaven, such as the rain, the malaika comes down, okay, snow, all this comes into the earth. Allah has knowledge of that, and none of this happens except by the will of Allah Azza wa Jal, except by the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. As we have mentioned that al-qadr, the first pillar is what? Al-ilm. Everything happened by the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. Then the ayah mentions that وَمَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْهَا وَمَا يَنْزِلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ, that nothing goes out from it, okay, like what? What is the thing that goes up? Okay, we have malaika that comes in the morning, and then they go in the evening, and they go in the evening, then another group of malaika comes in the evening. طيب, so we have malaika going up. We also have amal al-salih that goes up. Okay, so Allah says in the Quran, إِلَيْهِ يَسْعَدُ كَلِمَةُ الطَّيِّبِ وَعَمَلُ الصَّالِحِ يَرْفَعُهُ, that to Allah goes up the righteous action, and good word, and the righteous action goes up to Allah Azza wa Jal. Now in the Quran, we have ayat that indicates Allah is above the throne. Directly Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions, like Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arshi istawa. Allah, the most merciful, has rose above the throne. Direct ayah saying that Allah is above the throne. But we have ayat indicates indirectly that Allah is above the throne. Like for example, إِلَيْهِ يَسْعَدُ كَلِمَةُ الطَّيِّبِ, to Allah goes up good word. What does it mean? Allah is above the throne. Why would He go up? Because Allah is above the throne. طيب. Now, the many words that Ahl Sunnah, scholars of Ahl Sunnah mentioned that we affirm, like istiwa. Istiwa means to rise. We affirm this for Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, difference between istiwa and al-ulu, we covered this, al-aliyu, we covered this, isn't it? Ulu of Allah are two types, isn't it? Highness of Allah. He's physically above the throne, and His attributes is perfect. That's ulu that relate to sifat of Allah, attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal. Istiwa that relates to His actions, that Allah physically rose above the throne. So we affirm for Allah istiwa. We affirm for Allah Azza wa Jal su'ud. Ilahi yas'ad. We affirm for Allah Azza wa Jal istiqrar. Istiqrar. To istiqrar mean that He mounted or established Himself. And we affirm this. The story in Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned in his book Fatawa al-Kubra. Fatawa al-Kubra is one of the books of Aqeedah Al-Waasityyah. And he mentioned the story. There's the story of Ibn Abdul Barr. Ibn Abdul Barr is one of the great scholars. He born 368 in Qurtuba. And he's Maliki, and he's Imam, and the Salaf mentioned this. And he, mashallah, he mentioned the story about this person, Khalil bin Ahmed. He went to Abu Rabi' al-Ansari, his house, and Abu Rabi' said, and Abu Rabi was on top of the roof, and he said, Istawu. And he said, we sitting there, I'm puzzled. What does he mean, Istawu? And there was a Arabi, there was another person, he said, Irtafa'u, go up. So Ibn Abdul Barr, when he heard that, he goes, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. Allah rose above the throne. So istiwa means irtifah. You could have learned that. Istiwa means to go up. So they're lughawi, they're ulama, So the istiwa, istawu, come up. Yani, come up. So it means to go up, yeah. So Ibn Abdul Barr said, from that ayah, from this incident, I took the tafsir of ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. Istiwa means istiqrar. Allah has established Himself. So istiqrar, we affirm for Allah, ulu, fawqiyya, above, uruj, these are words we affirm for Allah Azza wa Jal. Also in the same book, Shaykhul Islam mentions that some of the Salaf mentioned that istiwa in lughatan doesn't mean istawla, to conquer. Istawla doesn't come in that meaning, never. And the grammarian will mention this. Scholar of the Lugha will mention this. طيب. So here, وَمَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْهَا, Allah has knowledge of what goes up to Allah Azza wa Jal. So this ayah, this part of the ayah, وَمَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْهَا, shows that Allah is above the throne indirectly. وَمَا يَنزِلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ, and what comes down to earth. Again, the rain, the snow, angel comes down. Also part of going up is the ruh. When the soul, when someone passes away, the Malakul Maut take the ruh up. He goes up. Why does the Malakul Maut goes up? Not east, west, north. Why does it go up? Because Allah is above the throne. When Musa, even Fir'aun knew Allah above the throne. When Musa alayhi salam went to Fir'aun, told him Allah Azza wa Jal, what did he say? Ya Hamani ibn li sarha. Or Haman is basically shadow man. He's his right hand man. Build me a castle. I want to go up to see Lord of Musa. Now, why did Fir'aun want to get a castle and go up? He knows Allah is above the throne. He didn't say, I'm going to go that way. La. When you make dua, you don't say like that. You raise your hand automatically. It's in the fitrah. It's in the fitrah. Even the kuffar, they raise their hand. Just some reason they don't put their hand down like that, because the fitrah says Allah is above the throne. He's not with us. He's above. Your hand automatically goes up, isn't it? So many examples like that. So this ayah indirectly telling us that Allah is above the throne. So Allah has knowledge of what goes up, what comes down. وَمَا يَعْرُجُ فِيهَا. Again, what goes up, yeah. So this word has the same type of meaning. طيب. So what we learn from this ayah, brothers and sisters, the viewers, is that we learn Allah has knowledge of all that. Okay, He has knowledge of all that because Allah is Allamul Ghuyub. طيب. So that's first ayah, Surah Saba, ayah 2. The next ayah, Allah said, وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ وما تسقط من ورقة إلا يعلمها ولا حبة في ظلمات الأرض ولا رطب ولا يابس إلا في كتاب مبين. Allah said, وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ. With Allah Azza wa Jal is the knowledge of unseen, the key. The mafatih, the two plural of it. Mafatih is the plural miftah, the key. And mafatih is the plural miftah, mean key basically. Okay? So Allah Azza wa Jal has the treasure or the key for the knowledge of unseen. لا يعلمها إلا الله. And Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned in the Quran many verses to indicate the knowledge of unseen only for Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah says, قُلْ لَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ الْغَيْبَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Say to the people, no one in the heaven and the earth has knowledge of unseen except Allah. And the Prophet said that about Allah. Allah said about Prophet, وَلَا كُنْتُ أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبَ لَاسْتَكْثَرْتُ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ. That if I had knowledge of unseen, I would have increased goodness. So a lot of people say Prophet had knowledge of unseen, he can benefit and harm. There's nothing in the Quran and Sunnah established the Prophet had knowledge of unseen. As Allah said about Prophet, that he would have increased good if he knew the knowledge of unseen. One of the examples I gave is that if Prophet had knowledge of unseen, what's going to happen, then he would have stopped battle of Uhud, they would have not lost it. Prophet never knew this is going to happen. They're going to lose the battle if he had knowledge of unseen. Well, Allah knew that. طيب. So the question is now, how does Prophet told us about the last sign of the last hour? Okay. When Jibreel came to Muhammad and said, أخبرني عن الساعة. Tell me of the last hour. Tell me about the last hour. He said, ما المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل. The one being questioned doesn't know better than the questioner. Meaning that none of us know. Okay, so we don't know when actually the last hour will establish. But then he said, أخبرني عن أمراتها. Tell me about the signs. Now the Prophet mentioned the sign. One of the signs he mentioned that women will give birth to a mistress girl. And the hadith Ibn Hajj explained that they will disobey Allah Azza wa Jal. They will be disobedience to Allah Azza wa Jal. And in the hadith that the barefooted, naked, uncircumcised, the Arab, they will have competition to in building the highest building. We can see this happening. 100 years ago, these Arabs, they were barefooted. They had nothing. But look what they've got, tallest building on the earth now. And this hadith has been established. It's the proof. طيب. So now, Prophet ﷺ, we have signs, major signs and the minor signs. The major signs are the 10 major signs. Minor signs are two types. One already happened. The conquest of Istanbul already happened. And there's some happening now, minor signs. طيب. Now, Prophet ﷺ, he told us the signs of the last hour, but he doesn't know when the actual akhirah will take place. The hour, he doesn't know. But Allah taught him the signs that will take place. How does he know? Because Allah taught him that. Allah told him that. And that's how he knows these signs. And it's important that we learn the signs. When the people came to Muhammad ﷺ, and Allah said that they come to you, ask about the last signs, when the hour will establish, tell them only Allah has the knowledge of that. But Allah taught him those signs, so he can tell the people. These are the signs. And one of the major signs of the last hour, when I say major, meaning the Prophet ﷺ and his death. That's the most indication that the last hour is going to establish and it's going to come. He's the last messenger, last prophet, and he's passed away. He's one of the important signs for us. The fact there will be no other prophet coming, he's the last prophet, is a sign of the mankind. He's a sign for the mankind. And his death is a sign for the mankind, subhanallah. And he mentioned in the hadith, between me and the akhirah, it's like this. Close his finger. طيب. So the signs of the hadith says that طيب. We mentioned the hadith, inshallah. So وَعِنْدَ مَفَاتُ الْغَيْبِ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ. That here Allah has the key for the knowledge of unseen. No one knows except Allah Azza wa Jal. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. And he knows what in the sea and on the ocean or on the land. So everything that on the land, the creatures that you see, flies and as we see around us, Allah has knowledge of that. Okay, the creatures that in the forest that you see moving around, Allah has knowledge of that. The bees, the flies, everything. Allah has knowledge of that. Al-Bar, the land. And humans don't have that knowledge. There's so many things in land, we have no knowledge of that. People are searching and learning. Allah has knowledge of all that. The movement, Allah has knowledge of that. Wal-Bahr, the sea, under the sea, the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah has created. Allah saying that I have knowledge of all that. I have created all that. All the movement that takes place under the sea, I have knowledge of that and I have created that. Okay? And وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا. That nothing from the leaves falls except Allah has knowledge of that. The leaves that falls, subhanallah, shows the perfection of Allah Azza wa Jal, His attributes. Perfection is knowledge. Nothing in the heaven and the earth moves, even leaves falls. Allah has knowledge of that leaves. Allahu Akbar. So it shows that his hayat full of perfection, his attributes full of perfections. And that brings to conclusion that Allah is the one who deserves to be worshipped alone. تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا. Except Allah has knowledge of that. Illa here shows that hasr, meaning only Allah has knowledge of that. Only He has the knowledge of that. وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ. And there is no habba, we say something very minute, small, that in the darkness of the earth, okay, or ratbin wala yabis, or any form of creation, dry or wet, anything, Allah has knowledge of that. So when you have a darkness, for example, ant crawling into in the dark, I don't know, in a dark rock or something, or in a field, dhulumat, in the darkness on the land, Allah has knowledge of that. The ant is habba, is very minute, small. Allah has knowledge of that. What we learn from this ayah, how Allah is telling us, Allah has knowledge of these minute things. Nobody has this. So Allah is teaching us, this is who I am. I'm Allamul Ghuyub. Nothing in the heaven and the earth passes my knowledge. I'm aware of that. إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. Except these are written in the Kitab Mubin, clear books. Lawhul Mahfuz, يعني. Okay? So Lawhul Mahfuz, everything that's happened in the heaven and the earth, even we're talking about the creatures in the sea, in the land, a snake running, bees running, flies running, whatever, leaves has fall from the tree. That's the decree of Allah. Allah has written that this is going to happen. And that happened under the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. That's what we're studying. طيب. And with the knowledge are two types, Am and Khas. Everything, this is part of Qadr of Allah. And this is Am, general Qadr. General Qadr for the creation. What happened around the earth is a general decree. But the specific decree for us is written when we're in the mother's belly. Okay, when the malaika is sent and is written for us, our decree. طيب. So all these happen by the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. That's why when we deny the Kitaba, Qadr, it's major kufr, because you deny the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. So the extreme Qadariyah, they disbelieve all this. They say all these leaves fall, all this happening, Allah doesn't have knowledge until it happens. So if there's a leaf fell, Allah didn't know it's going to fall until it fell. Yadu billah. So these are the extreme Qadariyah. طيب. Now there is a hadith which explains there's another ayah which explains this. Allah said, إن الله عنده علم الغيب علم الساعة وينزل الغيث ويعلم ما في الأرحام وما تدري نفس ماذا تكسب غدا وما تدري نفس بأي أرض تموت إن الله عليم خبير. Now this ayah, Allah says, again talking about knowledge of Allah, it talks about the sign of the last hour. Allah said, indeed, with Allah is the knowledge of as-sa'a. When the actual sa'a, the word sa'a means watch, but we're talking about when the last hour will establish. Allah said, indeed, He has that knowledge of that last hour. Okay? And we've mentioned that previously, nobody knows this except Allah Azza wa Jal. And Prophet ﷺ didn't know this except Allah, and Allah told Prophet some of the signs of the last hour. Ilmu as-sa'a, okay? Inna Allah indahu ilmu as-sa'a wa yunazzilu ghayth. Now, ghayth, nobody knows when the ghayth, rain, heavy rain will come down. Nowadays people have, weather forecast, they have machines, but that's different. Okay, we cannot, if we didn't have weather forecast, we cannot say it ain't going to come. Just because cloudy, it doesn't mean the rain going to come. طيب? So Allah has knowledge of that rain, and He created that rain. Okay, that's different. Using a machine to determine when the rain comes, that's different. Machine is different. Why did the human being create the machine? Because they have no knowledge of when the rain is going to come. They have to create a machine to tell them. طيب? So Allah has knowledge of when actually the rain is going to come. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ, and He knows what in the arham. Arham is rahm, which is the womb. Now Allah has knowledge of the child which is in the womb. But nowadays again we live in a society where they have machines, they can really tell you it's a boy or a girl. But this is not human knowledge though, is it? Human doesn't know that. That's why they create a machine to find what's in the belly of the mother. Okay, so that doesn't come into the ayah. No one can say, but how can human being know? But they know through the machine. Machine is different. Okay, they created the machine to know this. There's so many things under the earth. They don't know. They have to send the machine down to know what's under the sea. طيب? So again, that doesn't mean that to justify to say no. Human being knows what's in the womb, in the belly of the mother. No, it doesn't. They use the machine to know that. يعلم ما في الأرحام وما تدري نفس ماذا تكسب غدا. And nobody knows. Okay, nobody knows what they will earn tomorrow. غدا يعني tomorrow, mustaqbal, future. So, which means that we have no knowledge what we're going to do next week. But we might have a plan. Okay, next week I'm going to do this, go and eat, I'm going to visit the brothers. But in reality, you don't know. In reality, we don't know that. We can die tomorrow. Just because I made the plan doesn't mean I have knowledge of future. La, it's just, that's inshallah, that's your plan. But the reality, Allah knows your decree. Subhanallah. I can tell you that people made intention to go to make Hajj. They died on the way. Meaning they don't know the fate, but they made the intention to make Hajj, but the person died on the way to Hajj. So that's the real fate. You don't know that. So that actually what we're going to earn tomorrow, only Allah knows. Allah Azza wa Jal has knowledge of that ghadan, tomorrow, in future. Also Allah said, وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضِ تَمُوتُ. Also, you don't know which land you're going to die. Subhanallah, stories like they plan to die back home, and people plan to die. They tell their children, "Look, bury me in this graveyard in Bangladesh." But you don't know. You can die here, you can die over there. Anytime you can die in Hajj. So nobody knows where they're going to die, where is written for them. طيب? So this ayah talks about again knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. Inna Allah alimul khabir. Then Allah says, He ends the verse with two beautiful names. Indeed, Allah is al-alim wal-khabir. He didn't say, Inna Allah sami'ul basir. Why did Allah use alim and khabir? Because that two names relate to what He's talking about. Knowledge of unseen. The knowledge, the true knowledge of these things. So Allah mentioned, after saying all this, I am indeed most knower. But what does al-alim mean? The ulama say al-alim is knower of everything, but outwardly thing. Which outward, okay? But al-khabir means he knows everything, but it's something about the name al-khabir, the sifa is al-khibra, which is knowledge of intention. What's in your heart? Innermost. So Allah has all the knowledge of your innermost. Okay? Al-khabir, that's what it means. So these are the 5 things Allah mentions in the Quran. Nobody has knowledge except Allah Azza wa Jal. طيب, let's continue inshallah. وَمَا تَحْمِلُ مِنْ أُنْثَى وَلَا تَدَعُ إِلَّا بِعِلْمِ. Again, وَمَا تَحْمِلُ مِنْ أُنْثَى, talking about women carrying a baby. وَلَا تَدَعُ إِلَّا بِعِلْمِ, and she doesn't give birth except by the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. Again, this is also indicates Allah is Allamul Ghuyub, knower of everything. As we have mentioned before, nowadays, you have machine to tell you, okay, approximately that's when she will give birth. But they make mistake as well. Then the premature birth happens. But the true knowledge, Allah knows. Only Allah knows when they're going to give birth. And whenever they give birth, it's an indication that Allah has knowledge of that. لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. لِتَعْلَمُوا, Allah commanding us, verily know that Allah Azza wa Jal is able to do everything. Al-Qadir is the name of Allah, and the attribute Al-Qudra, and He is able to do everything. I think one of the questions comes when I talk about this, is that if Allah is Al-Qadir, He's able to do everything, so someone can say, look, Allah is Al-Qadir, why can He become a human being and die on a cross? And it can be a doubt for people. Yeah, Al-Qadir, so He can be a human being and die on a cross, like Isa did. Well, it does make sense then. So we say, number one, if Allah came down and died as in the cross, then He's not Allah anymore, is it? He's a human being, so He's not Ilah. Number one. Number two, when we say Allah is Al-Qadir, He can do everything, we say He does everything in the boundary of uluhiyah, that it doesn't take Him out of uluhiyah. He's still Ilah. But if we say Allah came down and became a human being, He's outside of the boundary of uluhiyah. He's not Ilah anymore. Okay? So He does everything that He remains who He is, Allah. طيب? That's the answer we give, and I think that's the best answer. And وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. So indeed, Allah Azza wa Jal ahata. Ahata means He encompasses everything with His knowledge. So like Salaf would say that Allah is above the throne, but hu muhit. His knowledge is muhit. His knowledge encompasses everything. His hearing encompasses everything. Okay, that's what it is. So ihata here means that Allah encompasses al-muhit. Muhit is the name of Allah. And ihata is a sifa. Muhit means he encompasses everything in the heaven and the earth. Means his knowledge is everywhere, his seeing is everywhere. That encompasses everything. Meaning nothing happens in the heaven and in the earth except, as we have covered, Allah has knowledge of that. And also, Allah sees all that. He sees all that. Naam. So this, what we covered today, my brothers, we covered some of the ayat of the Quran regarding Allah's knowledge, al-ilm. طيب, we finish it now, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Any questions? Let's take some questions, inshallah. Go on, akhi.
In what we covered before, when Allah said, "Huwa al-awwal wal-akhir," right? So that's obviously a ma'rifah.
Yeah.
So that indicates the thing you said, hasr, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So does that apply to jumla ismiya and fi'liya both?
Nice, ismiya.
But not so. There's no ikhtisas.
No, so fi'liya, no, not fi'liya, because this huwa al-awwal, we explained the grammar here. Huwa is the subject and the awwal is the predicate.
Khabar,
yeah, khabar, yeah. Okay, so normally you have subject, predicate. Predicate is normally khabar about Allah Azza wa Jal here in this case, that He is the first. Normally it's indefinite. So I will say like Muhammadun jalisun. Muhammad is sitting down. Muhammad is mubtada, is subject, and the khabar, the news about Muhammad, is sitting down. That's indefinite. That's the normal case. But the ulama says that if you have the predicate definite, that limited to that. So huwa al-awwal, meaning Allah is the first, meaning this name only for Allah. You can't give anyone this name except Allah Azza wa Jal. And awwali is only for Allah Azza wa Jal. The first. Yeah. But the brother asked me, I was the first one to come to the masjid. That's different. In this aspect, you're the first. Khalas, no problem with that. But alal itlaq, the awwal is Allah. You can't take that away. Yeah. So that's hasr. Yeah. Huwa al-awwal. Allahu as-samad. Also another hadith. Ad-deenu nasiha. Ad-deen an-nasiha. Deen is the advice. So the ulama says he is restricted to that. I mean, the whole deen the Prophet taught us based on advice. Deen is nasiha. Subhanallah.
No, like ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah.
الدعاء هو العبادة. Yeah. الدعاء هو العبادة. نعم. حياك الله. جزاك الله خير. Any clarification, inshallah? خلاص. Next week we'll continue. جزاكم الله خير. Yeah.